What's going on, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Round. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. What's up, Wesley? How are you?
Doing good. It's July, and there will be a football game
Yes.
in July.
Yes, this month we get football back. I mean, for a Steeler fan, the end of June ended in a crazy fashion. We'll talk about that, but let's talk collusion. This is actually something that, believe it or not, I don't think it's been getting a lot of publicity on any front. There's a reason why. I'll talk about that in a second. But for those people out there that are like, collusion, Jeff, what are you talking about? Wesley, give everyone a rundown. This was Pablo Torres of ESPN that got a hold of this, I guess, review or ruling of collusion. What's going on in the National Football League?
And for those, we thought that Pablo was going to be on this week to record. He had an emergency at the last minute, so he's
Yeah.
unfortunately unable to join us.
Yeah, sure did.
So the rest of this is completely unauthorized by Pablo. Any ideas or thoughts we have about this? So I mean, the high level, just kind of view is the story is that after the Cleveland Browns franchise signed Deshaun Watson to the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history, that at the following owners meetings or GM meetings, a presentation was put up basically saying that it's a bad idea to guarantee that much money and that teams shouldn't guarantee that much money, and fully guaranteed contracts could potentially be bad for their individual franchises.
Yes.
And
Go
the
ahead.
result is there haven't been the amount of guaranteed contracts since then. That did not start a new precedent. So the NFL Players Association is saying that the owners got together and colluded to not do that moving forward.
But the Players Association was also kind of involved in this. And JC Treader, who was, I don't know if he still is, like on the board for the Players Association, he came out and like publicly talked about it was the Russell Wilson deal
Yep.
and basically siding with the owners on like, you don't want to do this. This is not the way you want to go. It doesn't make sense why the Players Association in any way, shape, or form would not be siding with the players getting as much money as they can and as many guaranteed dollars as possible. I don't know. That made no sense to me, Wesley.
Yeah, I think the three names that are thrown around, which is the contracts that were not the same as Deshaun Watson, is Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Lamar Jackson. Let me just say that one of those things is not like the other four, the other three involved with those four quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting the way that's used. The thing that comes out, and I thought what was the craziest kind of part of it is that they're saying that there is not a single NFL player who claims that money that they asked for to be guaranteed isn't what they ended up with. So it sounded like, from negotiation standpoints, that yeah, owners didn't want to give that much guaranteed money, but that other players weren't asking for it, because it sounds like everybody on both sides kind of agreed that was a crazy contract from both sides, and that it shouldn't be replicated and wasn't going to be replicated and wasn't going to be used as a baseline for future negotiations.
I mean, there's always one team that's going to mess things up for the rest. We've talked about this a lot. I mentioned Christian Kirk's contract with the Jaguars when he left Arizona. He got that unbelievable contract. Like, wait a second, who? Who? This guy, like, how is he getting paid this much money? That was just an example. But what JC
Yep.
Treader was saying is that Russell Wilson's contract, and you mentioned Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson as well. Lamar Jackson, who does not have an agent, by the way, that makes things extremely dicey and interesting. They were all leading up to the Deshaun Watson. It's kind of like a slow escalation, a slow boil, so to speak. But again, I can't wrap my brain around why JC Treader would be siding with the owners here. That's maybe I misread it, Wesley. But when I was reading the comments by JC Treader and this is what was being reported, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. I'm looking at this saying, why in the hell would an NFL Players Association representative be siding with the opposition when it comes to negotiations? I don't know. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
There's also a lot of things that kind of I don't know if I don't think there's anything that can be proven as collusion in the way that so there is this presentation done about why these are a bad idea. Multiple times in the presentation, it says, but you are running your own team and you can do whatever you want. We just think it's a bad idea. And also, what tied in was kind of stuff that happened with COVID and the rebound from COVID. And like, if anything like that were to happen again, it's not something you could really, there's no way out, there's no way to move around. So they were actually showing real numbers about what happened. There was a big thing where the NFL Players Association executive director, DeMaurice Smith, who's been with them forever, he testified that Bob Kraft told him that Roger Goodell asked Kraft to speak to the other owners about a problematic rise in guaranteed compensation. There's no proof of that conversation happening. It was actually found to be by the arbitrator to not have happened. And it's so there's kind of weird stuff with that. And then the other thing, kind of reading about it, is they said 14 of the 32 NFL teams like had no choice but to adhere to it because they didn't have enough money anyway. Right. So like those 14 teams couldn't have concluded because they didn't have an option to spend those guaranteed kind of contracts and all. So there was also a big kind of questionable factor there of how many did it affect.
Yeah.
But to me, the big one was that not a single player, I think the quote was, not a single player testified that they sought more extensive guarantees that were categorically denied by team management. Like,
yeah, no, it makes sense. And I was doing some digging into why have we not heard more about this? If you follow NFL news and you follow social media, you've heard about the collusion case. But for a lot of people that are just maybe general fans of sports, they might not have really heard about this. And there's a reason why. So this is from Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, who was actually on that podcast with Pablo Torres as they were breaking the news. And of course, Mike Florio loves to peg the NFL as much as he can. And that's kind of like where he resides. We'll put it that way.
Not a fan.
That's fine. A lot of people aren't. But he writes this, and this is from ProFootballTalk.com. And it's, quote, players aren't talking either, other than a player and Walter Payton Man of the Year winner Chris Long. We've heard that there are executive committee members and or player representatives who aren't under the thumb of current NFLPA management. None of them have said peep about the current situation, however. It's unclear about the players' silence results from fear of reprisal or from basic apathy. Only one person so far would go on record, and that's longtime agent Peter Schaefer, provided a statement to Pro Football Talk. It says this, quote, it's clear the arbitrator confirmed teams colluded against guaranteed money, something we as agents have known they have done since the advent of free agency. The real question has always been, how do we create and force change? He would continue. For over 2 decades, the agent community has urged the NFLPA and CBA negotiations to eliminate the NFL's unilaterally imposed guarantee funding rule on guaranteed player contracts. The biggest obstacles to secure more fully guaranteed contracts. Now, with this ruling, we have leverage. It's time to act. Let's go end the funding rule. So to me, this begs the follow-up, which is this going to mess up and potentially lead to a collective bargaining agreement impasse, which could lead to another lockout? Because we already know the 18-game schedule stuff is going to be on the docket. We know there's a lot of others. This is just adding to that. Wesley, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I predicted a couple of weeks ago, like before this came out, that there is going to be an NFL lockout. There's now, whether it happens off season when nobody's trying to get into the facilities anyway is the hope and the goal. But the owners do not like how far it's gone, and the 50-50 split does not work for them anymore. The money's just gotten way, way, way too high for that. And so I do think that there is a reckoning coming. And I think that maybe that's a reason that the Players Association isn't appealing these rulings and isn't like trying to take it to a nuclear option, is that they know that there's a bigger fight actually coming that's where they're going to have to pick and choose. I will say this too. I think the reason that you're not hearing more about it is because even the big NFL fan, average sports fan, all of them, nobody cares about millionaires fighting billionaires over millions of dollars that everybody agrees that none of them deserve anyway.
Yeah.
Like not at the level they're getting. I'm not saying they don't generate lots of money and deserve, but the contracts. There's nobody anywhere in the NFL that heard about a defensive lineman getting $40 million was like, heck yeah, finally those guys. What I mean, nobody. I think that's another reason smart by the media to not push this, which I think the average person's gonna be like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, why are you guys fighting over this?
And that really makes Florio mad because he wants people to be up in arms. He wants them to be angry. And the people are just like, dude, I just want him to play football. Like, let's just play football. But this is a great segue into the next topic, which is, the NBA season is over. Their free agency is just kicking up. And you see these players, and it's been this way for over a decade, players that are not even starters getting absolutely ridiculous contracts. So to tie this in with the collusion and with the contract status in the National Football League, I feel like football players and their agents have to be seeing these contracts being dealt to Major League Baseball players, although that's not right now because they're in the middle of their season, but NBA players, and saying, this should be the future, guys. This should be the goal. And will the NFL, or could the NFL owners be the only organization, the only league that says, we're not going to let that be the norm? What do you think about that? Because I see these numbers for basketball players and I'm like, this is absolutely bonkers.
SGA just signed a new extension that's at over $71 million a year. It's absolutely crazy. And again, we're talking about, an 82 game season for basketball, which, and that's a small market team. That's maybe the smallest market team in the NBA. That's going to be paying that. I mean, I don't think that there's a way to walk it back for where we're headed. For all sports, pretty much, where it's going, I don't think there's a way to get back, unless the multiple, I don't know, 120 owners of all the major sports teams want to get together and collude. Beyond that, I don't think there's a way. I don't know. I mean, well, hey, you're a golf fan. Where does Live Golf fall into this, and paying people such astronomical amounts of money that they couldn't play in their favorite tournaments and couldn't play with some of their best friends and all because they had to pick and choose.
Well, hey, that's actually a really good analogy, because everyone if you're not a golf fan, you really don't understand this because you don't follow it. Live Golf and what Phil Mickelson and Greg Norman did when they said, we're done, we're starting this new thing, it's Saudi-backed money, outside of where the money's coming from, PGA Tour members have to be thanking their lucky stars that Live Golf created itself and then did what they did, buying out all these contracts. And the question is, well, why? Because guess who's getting paid boatloads more now? And that's PGA Tour players. Scotty Scheffler has made, I don't know, in the last 2 years, over almost $40 million just in earnings. That doesn't even count anything as it pertains to sponsor deals with Rolex and TaylorMade and Nike. But you look at this, and he would not have made this much money prior to Live being a thing. That PGA Tour had to answer Live Golf in terms of how much they were paying their players, their athletes, their golfers in this case. And so I think you look at baseball, you look at basketball, and football is saying, we feel like we're being left out in the cold here with the way that our contracts are structured. We play a physical game. We don't play as many games, but we do put butts in the seats. We have eyeballs on the viewers, and the money is there, and they want their cut. And so I do think that in a way, the basketball contracts we're seeing right now are kind of like Live Golf, and then you see the PGA Tour being the NFL, and the NFL saying, we got to match this stuff, or else these players we're gonna lead to a lockout. So I think that's a good analogy. I don't know, where do you see this ending? Anywhere other than NFL players getting NBA style contracts?
Well, so the one thing that the NBA did to fight it is the way they have done the first and second apron and the penalties for going over those. And it has made it to where you can sign these mega contracts, but there's only so many players you're going to be able to pay now. Right. And there are hard caps. And listen, I think that what they did wrong is they made it super, super complicated where me and you can't have a 5-minute conversation about it and understand it. And the average person has no idea what's going on. They're just mad because their team can't sign a player. But for the competitiveness of the league and players moving and kind of more of a balanced approach, and again, a small market team like Oklahoma City able to win a championship, it has been good for the league, or will be, because it's really still taking shape with a few things, few teams getting successful and then having to back up. We just saw the Celtics rip apart their team from 2 years ago that everybody was like, this is the dynasty that's going to win 6 straight championships. And their team's completely different now than it was, when they were winning the championship just over a year ago. So I think that they've done it the right way of just where the money's going to go and how you're going to actually have to make the money work out.
And I think this is another good segue into today, or when we're recording this on July 1st, is Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. This is become a national holiday. Every July 1st, you see all these people going to Twitter and posting about Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, because that is the day that Bobby Bonilla is set to collect another $1.193 million from the New York Mets. He will get that amount of money every July 1st through the year 2035. And it's not the only one. I know the guy that owns and runs Spot Rack. He has been putting on Twitter today a ton of other players, like Matt Holliday, is still getting checks from the Cardinals that are more than his son is making with the Baltimore Orioles currently.
Yep.
Just incredible stuff. We've talked about our financial heroes in the sports world. Obviously, Bobby Bonilla was like the pioneer there. Wesley, do you have any others that would fall in line there?
Well, I'll just say here's the thing that always gets lost on Bobby Bonilla is I think that people go, oh, for 25 years, he's getting $1.19 million. That's cool that they paid it out. And I think that people get lost with how big contracts are and think that number not astonishing them. Bobby Bonilla was owed $5.9 million only. Instead of giving him $5.9 million, they gave him $1.2 million a year for 25 years. He's getting almost $30 million instead of 5.9. It's not like, oh, he was going to make 30 million, but they were able to pay it out over 25 years. No. He only was due 5.9.
Yeah.
And there's still the crazier thing about it is the reason they didn't have the money is because the Mets owner had a great investment opportunity that was going to make him so many millions and millions, potentially billions of dollars on return that it was worth him to know he was going to give Bobby Bonilla almost $30 million. His great investment opportunity was Bernie Madoff. He seriously, he took the $5.9 million that he was supposed to give to Bobby Bonilla, gave it to Bernie Madoff, lost all of it, and now has, the Mets organization has to pay Bobby Bonilla almost $30 million. A little known fact, most people know, one, it was a smaller amount of money considering everything.
Yeah.
And it was because the guy wanted to give the money to Bernie Madoff to invest for him.
Could you imagine if you're Bobby Bonilla and his agent, and the Mets come to you and say, listen, Bobby, I know we owe you over $5 million. Here's what we're offering. Just hear us out, okay? I know you want your money. We're willing to pay you close to $1.2 million a year for the next 20 years. Or I don't know, how many years was it? Was it 25?
25. He's got 10 more years of it.
Okay, so we're going to pay you $1.2 million for the next 25 years instead of paying you just $5 million up front. What do you think? You can take it or leave it. If I were the agent, I'd be like, wait a second, are you serious? You're going to pay him that much money to do nothing?
Yeah,
sign it quick, man. Sign it quick.
Hey, Bobby Bonilla said it's his favorite day of the year. It's better than his birthday. He said that it made sense to him. He goes, I was young and didn't want to ever screw up and be broke. So this made it to where no matter how bad I screwed up, I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
He also he's got 3 more years of getting $500,000 a year from was it the Marlins or whatever the next team that went, or Cardinals or something? He has 3 more years of getting $500,000 from one team, and then 10 more years still of the Mets.
Well, I'll say this about Bobby Bonilla. For those, there's probably a lot of young fans that only know Bobby Bonilla from July 1st. I got to watch him play, obviously, with the Pirates when he came into the league. That dude could play. He wasn't just a power hitter. He could play a mean third base. He played first base, and he even then transitioned to the outfield. The guy was one hell of a baseball player.
Listen, he was part of the Killer Bees it was Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla, and they were the future of the Pirates organization, and
I don't
they
want to
were
talk about it.
studs both together. Do
I
what?
don't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
The 91-92
It's the
Pirates
opposite. It's the
killed
opposite
me.
of today's Pirates.
They absolutely killed me, man. That team was loaded. The 92 ALCS down in Atlanta where Sid Bream scores from left. Like, no, I can't talk about that. So, but hey, we do have football this month. Interesting stat here. I'll read this from Warren Sharp at Sharp Football on Twitter. It said the NFL will explode in July. On the 12th of July, the first rookies report to camp. The 16th, the first veterans report to camp. These are not all teams. These are just some teams. By the 23rd, which is when the Steelers report, 100% of players are at their training camps. The 31st, the last day of July, the first preseason game, Detroit, LA Chargers at 8 p.m. Do you feel like we made it over the hump, Wesley, or is there still some time to go?
Oh no, there's still it's yeah. Like this next 3 weeks is gonna be rough, and then we're not going to get as much information out of those as we think, because there's so many are closed to the public, and it's a mess.
Yeah, hey, we've made it sort of
getting close.
It's really August. August is when you're like, okay, we're back. We are back. Before we talk about the Cleveland Browns potentially playing what they will be playing in a dome now, I want to get your take on the big trade, man. We haven't talked about it yet. Steelers, Dolphins. Minkah Fitzpatrick goes back to the team that drafted him in 2018. The Steelers get an aging Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, a pick swap. I'm curious, and you texted me, of course, but what's your take on the trade?
Listen, I think that the Steelers did probably one of the smartest things you can do, which is getting off a $25 million contract for a safety. Safety over the last few years has become like one of the most undervalued positions. Like, it's been really hard in free agency each year for most safeties to find homes because they think they're going to get that big money. I think it's a smart decision. That is not a position to spend that much money on when you have other things going on. And you're getting off that contract and you're buying low on Jalen Ramsey, who, if he hits and has any kind of return to form, which is what he expects, you've got a stud cornerback. And I think that Jonnu Smith is a really smart addition for Aaron Rodgers. That's right up in that's the perfect kind of tight end that Aaron Rodgers had incredible luck with, or in his career.
Would you say that safety is the most depreciated position? I want to say running back, but I feel like running backs have gotten a jolt of life. Like, they're kind of coming back when you look at Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry getting big-time contracts and earning it. You even go to Josh Jacobs and players like that. They've earned some money. So I don't feel like running back – there was once a time where we had that conversation, like our running back slowly like dying a slow death. I feel like it's safety more than any other position. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm still probably going running back.
Really?
Yeah, probably. I think you've got those couple of headline guys, but there's a lot of like very decent running backs out there that if go look at the names on the running back market. There's some names out there of some really big names from a couple years ago. We're coming up on this is the second year now. Leonard Fournette can't even get a sniff to show up, and I mean, if healthy, one of the most exciting guys in the league even a couple of years ago. I mean, he's obviously dealt with lots of injuries, but I don't know. It's close, but
well, at least running backs have the big name players. They have the Saquon Barkleys, the Derrick Henrys, the safeties. I mean, go back to when we were younger. You could go back to Ronnie Lott, and you could name a bunch of safeties back in that era. You could also go to the early 2000s when you had Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, Brian Dawkins, some of the greatest safeties of the modern era. Who are the safeties now?
Well, I mean, yeah, we could go look at contracts, and the top safeties are making $10 million a year more than the top running backs. I mean,
even just from a name perspective, like Minkah Fitzpatrick was one, but I can't name any.
There's just been a lot of watering down of kind of what's happened with the league of where running backs were falling out of favor and the running game was going away. Defenses got smaller. We went to a lot of teams doing the 5 defensive back set with kind of mixing who are the defensive backs, who are the safeties, and where they play in, and you don't know where anybody's going to be standing or who's going to move up or move back. And so I think that watered it down to where safeties didn't exist. if we are going back to this return of the running back, which has happened because all these linebackers have gotten smaller, a lot of these defensive linemen have gotten smaller, the safeties have gotten smaller. As that continues to happen, you have these big, powerful running backs, and they can run over all those guys. Are we going to see a shift back? Because you got to fight that somehow. Well, that big, hard-hitting free safety is a way.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it's good that there's been an ebb and flow to the game, though, of kind of where everybody's trying to match up and what's going to let you be successful.
And that's why, from a Steelers perspective, the more I think about it, if you can have Jalen Ramsey be a versatile piece at both corner and or safety, almost like Charles Woodson was at the end of his career, then that's better than a Minkah Fitzpatrick who really wasn't utilized to his best ability in Pittsburgh the last few years anyways. He was more like a center fielder. Those are kind of a dime a dozen. I'm sorry. Like, Steeler fans hated how he only had one interception in the last 2 years. It's not because he couldn't play anymore. It's because of the way they were using him. So if the Steelers aren't going to use him, then get someone that you're going to use, and I think Jalen Ramsey fits the bill. So, all right, let's finish this up with a little dome talk. Cleveland, they just got the funding. I think it was like $600 million or something like that. They're going to be leaving downtown Cleveland and moving kind of on the outskirts closer to their airport. It's a dome. I don't know, man. There's something I just don't like. Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns playing in a dome. What's your take on this?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that the general thing is when you think about Cleveland football, you think about it being super cold and icy and people in the front row with body paint and their no shirts on. And wondering how they like it. I think it seems like a good idea, but I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna stick with something I said in the playoffs. Now again, we don't have to worry about the Cleveland Browns hosting a playoff game anytime soon, but I don't want weather affecting my playoff games. And so
that's right.
if this is a dome situation, I will say the Saints played in Cleveland a couple of years ago. In a game that multiple Saints players said is like the worst football game they've ever been a part of. They hated it. I know a couple of Saints reporters that said just being there was awful. They hope that the team never plays in Cleveland again during the winter. So it sounds like it was just miserable. And to be fair, it was an incredibly terrible game to watch too, where nobody could throw a pass or catch a pass, and you could barely even get any footing to run. I like the idea of the old smash mouth football in the cold and all. But this is good. It's good for the sport. We want to watch good games. We want to have good camera angles. We want to have the right lighting. We want to get all the replay angles.
The right lighting.
I don't know.
What the hell are you talking about? This is not football. If you're talking about the lighting, this is not like a podcast
I will say,
studio.
I will say that I'm influenced by living in the South and wanting air conditioning. Where what do you think? You're up there in the area kind of close to Ohio and up in the same kind of weather. Is this wrong for football?
Well, let's also call a spade a spade. This comes down to one thing. Cleveland won a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. And so they're never going to get a Super Bowl because that New York, the MetLife Stadium, that was a one-off. I don't think the NFL is ever going to risk having a Super Bowl being played in an outdoor venue unless it's in the South where they're guaranteed to have better weather. They won a Super Bowl. And so they're able to say to the Ohio governor and legislature, listen, if we can get a Super Bowl, if we can get a dome, and we have the infrastructure, think about the money it'll bring in to the area. And so that's how they get the funding for this stuff. I'm sure that they will if it's a brand new, beautiful stadium. I don't know. Is SoFi getting the Super Bowl anytime soon? I don't think they've had it yet, have they?
Didn't they?
Did they?
Maybe.
Who knows? I know Jerry World got it right away. When then that stadium, but that was Super Bowl 45, Pittsburgh and Green Bay, when Aaron Rodgers' Packers beat the Steelers. But still, yeah, we'll see. It's interesting. I understand what you're saying. You like it to be on a level playing field and all that stuff. But
I like air conditioning.
Air conditioning, yes.
If I lived up there, I'd like heating.
All right, Wesley, it's been a good show, man. Why don't you tell us how we can find you on social media and what's coming up on the Dome Patrol podcast?
Real quick before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to who is truly the deferred contract king of all time, and it's Bruce Sutter. In 1984, he was a reliever for the Atlanta Braves. He signed a 6-year, $9.1 million deal. 50% of his salary, he got a 13% interest on. On his 6-year, $9.1 million deal, he was paid $47 million.
That's fantastic. These guys are great. Good for whoever's brokering that deal. Gosh,
Absolutely
like,
thing.
laughing all the way to the bank.
But you can find me on X at whodatwesley13. You can find me on the talking about the Saints on the Dome Patrol at Dome Patrol PCast. Talk about movies and TV shows and all that too. And then on X, I'm always giving Jeff a hard time about Tiger highlights and the greatest golfer of all time.
Yeah, he was the most dominant golfer. I'm not going to go as far as saying greatest, but he was the most dominant for sure. But anyways, you can find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. Also on the Steel Curtain Network, talking Steelers, and steelcurtainnetwork.com. That does it for another episode of The Way We See It. We'll talk next week. Wesley, take it easy, man.
See you, man.